Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt, and each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, rev our engines, or just need a bit more conversation.
And on this week's episode, I have a profound question for Matt and our listening audience.
Don't go too deep.
No, I'm diving in deep.
Oh boy, here we go.
One. So, and that is, should you ever own your dream car? But before we get into all that, I just wanted to remind you that you can find out more about us and what we're into at gtgaragetalk.com. There you can find links to all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at GT Garage Talk, where you can see the latest news and information from us. And what we're into, like, I don't know, a little car show that we're doing this October.
Yeah, something like that.
We'll probably get into that later, though, right?
Just a few weeks out.
Yeah, it's creeping up on us. Isn't it?
It is quick.
But today's episode, I really want to hone in on this idea of, should you ever own your dream car?
Right. Oh, you're asking?
Yes.
Oh, well, I think we have to start with the definition of dream car first.
Okay.
Because, there's dream cars that are like, a McLaren 720S.
Yes.
There's dream cars that are a 67 Camaro.
Yes.
There's, dream cars that are 1940 Packard.
Okay.
There's dream cars that are motorcycles.
Right.
So I think we have to come to an understanding of what a dream car would be.
Okay.
Before we can move forward with whether or not you should own one.
See, you're getting deeper than I ever got. This was a very simple question. Should you own a dream car? Your dream car.
It's not a simple question. I mean, because really, when you look at it, like dream car. So let's work on a definition. What a dream car would be? Is it the car that you have, like we've talked about before, the car that you have on the poster on the wall in your bedroom growing up?
I mean, that is definitely a strong contender.
Right. Is it one that is just out of reach of being able to attain it at some point in your life, and that makes it the dream because it is just out of reach?
Yeah.
Is it one that has been in your mind for decades as the vehicle that one day I'm going to own that car?
See, my definition incorporates all three of those.
Okay.
And I don't know if I want to answer this yet or if I want to make you answer it first.
Oh, boy.
But yes.
Okay.
To all the above.
Okay.
Yes. It should possibly be attainable. It
Right.
should definitely be something worthy of a poster on the wall.
Yeah.
Through at least adolescence.
Okay.
Because I don't think, no. Yep, I'm sure there is not a single car picture poster on the wall of my house now as a grown adult with a child myself. That will probably change. Tucker is very much into cars.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there should be I don't want to use the word, but I'm gonna a lustful type.
Okay.
Wish behind it, maybe.
Okay.
Something that it excites you about the thought of ownership.
Yeah.
It's not just, as we say in our intro, it's not just an appliance to get you from point A to point B. It's something that you're like, yeah, I get to drive this today. I get to look at it. I get to experience it. And
it's more than just the...
More than a passing fancy.
but an emotional tie,
yes.
A deeper level of motivation to...
Right.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'm following.
So do you have one of those?
I have owned... Well, let me back up even more. So the vehicle that I'm driving right now, a 2007 Subaru Impreza 2.5i.
Right. Which, if you want to know a little bit more about Matt getting said vehicle, you can go back and listen to the Mystery Machine episode of our podcast where we tease it a little bit back and forth before we go into the full details of it. But
just a couple weeks ago with that episode.
That is Matt's new rig. So go back, Mystery Machine. Anyway, sorry.
84,000 miles, manual transmission. Hashtag save the manuals.
Yes.
And it is just a plain Jane, simple A to B vehicle. But I look forward to driving that car every time I get a chance to.
Yeah.
To the point of, and I haven't had time to make time, but to the point of wanting to just get in my car and go drive.
Right.
Especially when I don't have time
right.
to do so. It's like, so leaving my work on my way home, I'm only 2 miles from doorstep to doorstep.
That kind of takes away a little bit of the fun of owning a vehicle.
Yeah.
So I live 3 miles from work, and
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm currently actually working from home, so that completely takes away the fun of having a fun daily driver, which I don't.
At one point in my trip, the speed limit goes from 35 to 40 and then to 50. So it's a nice progression.
All within 2 miles.
I get to, I get to row through the gears a little bit, right? Push it a little bit to get a more, what little bit of sound comes out of a 2.5 flat 4. Push it to where I can hear a few things working, and then I have to shut it down and turn left, and it's 35 the rest of the way home. There have been several times when I've been very tempted, instead of downshifting, to slow down, to downshift and punch it and head on south on 110 on my way out of town, because I just want to go drive.
Yeah.
I love driving that car. It's a fun car to drive. It's a comfortable car to drive. But it's an easy car to drive.
But is it a dream car?
I don't know that I would necessarily classify it as a dream car.
Because like you said, there's nothing special about it.
At least in its current state. And here's where...
Okay.
Here's where...
See, you're going deep. You're the one going deep tonight.
Here's where the definition for me, in the vehicles that I've owned, kind of splits off a little bit. Because I have owned what I would classify as the vehicle that would be my dream vehicle.
Right.
But it was never at the point of being completely... I feel like I'm talking in circles here.
Spit it out, Matt.
My dream vehicle is a 1971 Volkswagen Super Beetle.
Right.
I have owned a 1971 Volkswagen Super Beetle.
Yes, you have.
But it was never at the point of being complete.
Right. It was a project vehicle.
It was a project. It was painted. I had chromed out the engine because chrome was a big deal. Like, there was chrome everywhere. The firewall was chrome. The doghouse was chrome. The carburetor was chrome. I mean, everything was chrome. There was a chrome deal that went over the alternator to make it chrome too. Like, everything under that car was chrome, except for the blue distributor cap and the blue spark plug wires.
Naturally.
Yeah.
You need a little contrast.
Exactly. But the reason I can say that no, I haven't owned my dream vehicle is because the variation of that vehicle that I would like to own would take tens of thousands of dollars to construct.
Nice.
It would not be your typical 1971 Volkswagen Super Beetle.
Yeah.
You could probably track down most of the parts and just buy them outright as what they would be.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that would happen different with that engine, a lot that would happen different with the transmission, the width of the fenders and the height and the stance and the wheels and tires.
I see where you're going on this.
So for me, have I owned a 1971 Volkswagen Super Beetle? Yes. Have I owned my dream vehicle? No. Because I never had the opportunity or have not yet had the opportunity to manifest the dream portion of the the dream vehicle.
Right, right. So this kind of ties into some of the questions we ask when we do interviews on our show, our random misfires, if you will. A typical go-to question of both of ours is built versus bought.
Right.
It is a random misfire question because it is a point of contention between
definitely
you and myself.
Right.
Because you are team built and I am team bought.
Yep.
For the most part. That's not to say I would not modify a vehicle, but I tend to go newer, more technologically savvy, yada, 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 yada.
Right.
Yada. And basically, I guess I have I don't know, just newer, like I said, newer, more technical outlook on things, or at least what I would want, excluding my 1969 Camaro Z28, which I would want to be bone stock. As original, factory original as possible.
Right.
And so, all that to say, you obviously, your dream car is a built how you would want it, spec how you would want it. It's not a run-of-the-mill anything. It's not something you could just go to a dealership and get. I appreciate that answer.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm giving you a hard time now because you definitely went deeper than I did. Because I am thinking, broad strokes, generalizations here. So,
right.
For those of you who have not been with us from the very beginning, I would highly suggest going back to episode 1, the introductions of your two co-hosts, Matt and myself, where we talk about our own personal car histories, what got us into cars, and what we've had throughout the duration of our adult life as we've been driving. And you will definitely hear my story of what my dream car is. We've mentioned it a couple times. I'm a Camaro guy. I fell in love with a 1996, 97. I can't remember because I was 9 years old. But there was a Camaro outside our apartment as we were growing up, and I had to know more about that vehicle, and it grew from there.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research, fell in love with the old ones, fell in love with the new ones, and have loved them ever since. And all that to say, I ended up owning a Camaro.
Yeah.
A 45th anniversary Camaro, so something special about it.
Yeah.
And it was an SS, so it had power.
Oh, yeah.
And manual transmission, hashtag save the manuals, 6-speed, and I loved that thing.
Yeah.
Which takes me into how I would answer this question. Should you own your dream car? Absolutely and absolutely not.
Okay.
So, absolutely you should if you can be smart about it.
Right.
At least smarter than I was about it. So, at the time in my life, when I purchased my Camaro, or I should say, started the purchase of a Camaro because I never owned it outright. The bank always owned more of it than I did.
Yeah.
But at the time that I owned it, it was that magical age of 25, which all the males listening to this show right now know that when you hit 25, for some weird reason, your insurance goes down, just gets a little bit cheaper. And so I was going to use that little cushion of a window to say, all right, now it's time to get something a little more costly to insure.
Right. Right.
And like I said, I'd always loved Camaros. I had a keychain that I was holding back until I had a Camaro key to put it on or put on it. And and just so happened I got a raise at work right at the same time. All the pieces were falling into place.
The stars aligned.
The stars were aligning, or so I thought, because I committed all my cardinal sins of purchasing a vehicle. I went alone.
Okay.
So I had no one to kind of be the good cop, bad cop, kind of the yin to my yang, the yes to my no. I had no one to play the other side.
Right.
Went alone. It was a highly emotional purchase.
Oh, yeah.
To the point where, especially the one that I found. So I was driving by the dealership one day and saw it on the lot and just started looking through the window. Like, I was the car salesman's dream on that one because I was not intending to purchase, but all the factors I laid out earlier, the stars were aligning, and why not?
And what were you driving at the time?
2011 Chevy Equinox.
Okay.
2LT.
Right.
4-cylinder. Was that one even turbocharged? I don't
No.
even know if that had a turbo 4 in it.
No,
Just
it
a
didn't.
4-cylinder. That had already let me down a couple of times with some major drivetrain issues.
Right.
Yes. I'm surprised we got back from Houston one night with the biggest debacle but that's another story. So I'm driving. We called it the hamster, jokingly. Her name was Scarlett, but we called her the hamster or the gerbil. More so the gerbil, I guess, than the hamster. But I joked that there was a hamster on a wheel under the hood.
Right.
And
then
hence that kind of stuck.
Yeah. I'm not convinced there wasn't.
There most likely was. That thing had no power. But it was well equipped. It had heated seats, remote start.
It was nice.
Sunroof. Like I said, it was 2LT, so it wasn't their top of the line, but it had all the bells and whistles of the time. But it was by no means what I wanted. It was not getting the fuel economy that I thought it would when I got it. I've kind of hashed all that out back in episode 1, so you go back and listen to that for all my gripes. But so stars aligned. I'm there checking it out. I notice it's got a manual transmission. I notice it's an anniversary edition. I notice that it's an SS. I see everything checking off the boxes of exactly what I've been wanting and dreaming of for years. Just to think that I would be able to get an anniversary edition of my favorite car. And I actually remembered they allowed me an overnight test drive, which at that point they've got you. They allowed me an overnight test drive, and I called some friends and coworkers. I said, talk me out of this, please. There was no talking me out of it.
No.
And sure enough, I went in the next day, and I knew I was buying it. So again, I committed all the cardinal sins of car purchasing. Emotional. Right. I in my head knew I was getting it. There was no talking me out of it. There was no one there with me to at least bring the price down a little bit by,
right.
Like I said, being the yin to my yang. So when I left there, they had tacked on all the dealer add-ons because, again, I was super emotional about this purchase.
Right.
I just wanted the keys and to be out the door.
Right.
And I was also young. Like I said, I had just turned 25. It was my first, it wasn't my first new car purchase. It was actually my third. But it was just all around an emotional experience for me. And so I overextended myself. In fact, I joke nowadays, my first apartment by myself, the rent was actually less than my car payment on this car. So, yes, you should own your dream vehicle if you don't overextend yourself, if you can be wise about it.
Right.
If you are not going to be sacrificing a lot for it, because it was an overreach. For my budget. I remember there were a few times where I was like, I don't know what I'm eating this week, but I got a Camaro.
Yeah.
That's fun. I remember driving down to College Station for an Aggie football game, wondering if I'd have enough money to fill it up with gas on the way back. So, yeah, I totally not the right time for me to own that vehicle. So, again, I would say timing also comes into play here. But yes, you should own your dream vehicle if you're not overreaching, if you can be smart about it.
To expound on that a little bit, my dream vehicle, 71 Super Beetle, I promise you I won't be able to keep rear tires on it. I want the money and the time to be able to go to track days and autocross races and drag races and things like that. So not only I guess what I'm saying is when you look at the purchase of, like you had a set amount, you had a car payment every month. Right. This was what you were spending on the car. Right. That did not include tires, fuel,
the premium fuel that it required,
insurance, like all the things that go along with it.
Right.
So it's not just about having the car payment or not just about, all right, I've saved up $12,371 and you go out and buy a car for $12,371. That's all fine and dandy. What are you going to do when you go to start it and there's no fuel in it?
Yeah, the cost of ownership too. Yeah, it definitely compounds because the Pirelli P0 tires that were on that thing weren't cheap either.
No,
and I did within the 1 year that I had it in my possession. I'll phrase it that way. Within the 1 year I had it, I needed new rear tires.
Yeah. What were they like? 275, 55, 20 or something like that?
Let's see. Were they staggered? I don't think they were staggered in size. I honestly can't remember. I just remember thinking nearly $1,000 for 2 tires is just a bit on the pricey side.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
In a period of life where I'm wondering on a road trip to and from College Station whether or not I'm going to be able to fill it up on the way home.
Yeah.
Definitely more goes into it than purely the cost of owning it and paying for
right
the payments of it.
And it's being able to enjoy that vehicle
right
instead of worrying about whether or not I'm going to be able to put fuel in it. So,
which is why I only had it for a year because it had kind of become an idol to me. But I'll get a little more into that in just a second because there were a few more things that I did that were I was told they were diva moves.
Okay.
And so let's get our gearheads' thoughts and opinions on this one. So anyone who has driven a Camaro of any generation knows that the doors on those things are stinking huge. Like they go on for 2 years from the hinges. They're long.
Just the 2 doors are half the weight of the vehicle, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
So I found myself parking out in the boonies at work, at the grocery store, anywhere I went, simply so I could just swing the door open, get out, and not worry about banging into anybody or anything like that. And also, if somebody parked next to me, like the maneuver
to get in
to
and
get
around
down low and sideways, and it just wasn't cool. And so this kind of gets into where I say, no, you shouldn't own your dream car because you kind of put your dream car up on a pedestal.
Yep.
It's this thing that you've wanted that has no flaws. It is perfect.
Right.
It is your dream car. It's the poster that you've had on the wall. It's what you've wanted for however many years.
Yeah.
And when you get it, it's like meeting your idol.
Right.
You realize that they're human too.
Oh, yeah.
So you realize that this car was made by people. Budgets came into consideration when they designed it. Build quality is a thing. All these things come into play.
Just to be clear, build quality issues are a thing for most things General Motors.
Most things automobile, let's just face it. Okay, even Toyota has their problems.
But especially...
You're coming at me here. This is my dream car, man. Kicking me while I'm down. I'm being vulnerable with our listeners here. But yes. So I've heard it said, just for instance, every General Motors vehicle has a part of the interior that will cut you. That is a phrase that some automotive journalists have used. And having owned exclusively General Motors vehicles my entire career of driving, yes, maybe. Like, I haven't always looked at my interiors with that mindset, but I can definitely see how hard plastic die cut lines and things of that nature point out, or things weren't just so when they put them together. I'm driving a Chevy right now, and the adhesive sticky tape that holds the touchscreen into its little housing is visible. It's like covering up just ever so slightly a little bit of my touchscreen on my infotainment system.
Right.
And I think it's actually getting worse. I don't know how, but I think it's actually getting worse over the 6 years that I've owned it now.
Yeah.
So, 7. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been 7 years. So I'm not quite sure about that, but yes. So you start to realize that, yes, this dream vehicle that I thought was perfect,
Right.
maybe not so much. One of the biggest gripes to the pretty much any Camaro made in the modern era after, so fifth and sixth generation, I'll just say fifth and sixth generation. It's like looking out of a coffin is generally how people describe it. The windows are glass slits in a very dark cabin, and
Yeah.
because I had an anniversary edition, it was black outside with racing stripes, and it was black inside, but at least it had this nice white swath of, let's just call it what it is, hard plastic.
Yeah.
That crossed the entire dash and was a huge white plastic panel on the side that did have some cool lights back behind it. So
Yeah.
it looked nice at night. So it broke up a little bit of the blackness, but it was dark in there. I did have a sunroof, which was practically always open. Again, helped with the darkness in there, but it was dark, and it was hard to see out of going in reverse.
Yeah.
I guess it would be the B pillar. Huge on that. You couldn't see over your shoulder changing lanes. It was
there a
it was put on the blinker and go fast enough to get ahead of where you are, which was not a problem in that car.
No.
Get ahead of where you are because you see there is clearly an open spot in front of you. Who
Right.
knows what's beside you?
Yeah. Was there a glass for the, like, between the B and C pillar?
Yeah, so there was a tiny little window behind for basically whoever was unfortunate enough to be sitting in the back seat.
Right.
And that was another thing. The back seat was never a problem for me. I never sat in it, but
Sure.
that was another thing that kind of led to the decision to move to another vehicle. Was I could only ever really honestly take one other person with me, and that started becoming a problem in my day-to-day life.
Sure.
It had a back seat, but nobody really wanted to ride back there. And
Yeah.
again, Colton, I know you're listening. I'm sorry. Cooper, I'm sorry. Coming back from San Antonio, I don't know how they did it. Especially Colton. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". I don't know how he crammed
man.
himself back there. But
Okay, so maybe owning your dream car is fine, and I think you're
Right.
getting to this. Owning your dream car, yes, go for it,
yeah, absolutely.
but it ought not be your daily.
That would have definitely helped with a lot of the things that started bringing the Camaro down from my pedestal. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people that hate Camaros or Mustang fanboys and stuff like that coming at me and,
Right.
Poking fun at me, and I'll bring it on. But I still do. That is a car I wish I could have her back. It was a fun car,
Yeah.
but was not worth the payments. And I alluded to it earlier. I'll go ahead and get to it. It had become an idol to me. And just the crazy, outrageous payments on that for where I was at that point in my life. The thought that I really wasn't going anywhere. Road trips are fun. Like,
Right.
for me, the trip itself is as fun sometimes as the destination.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're in a car that you can only really legitimately have one other person with you comfortably, that was a major downside for me.
Sure.
So again, to your point, if it weren't my daily, it
Yeah.
would definitely make a whole lot more sense. So that, yes, comes into a play. So if you have just this giant garage that you can have multiple different vehicles in, I say wholeheartedly, yes,
Right.
own your dream car.
Oh, yeah. Well, and so I've heard Johnny Lieberman say this. He's a host on the Motor Trend channel.
Yes,
He does like 3 or 4 different shows on there.
he does. And
But-
I believe he's also an author for the magazine
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
But,
Well, he has I believe it's a Lamborghini Countach, so an older, and it has been one of his dream cars,
right.
and he hates driving it
See?
because it's. I mean,
It's a beast.
Yeah.
And it's going to the Grand Tour and Top Gear. Lamborghinis of that era are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
They are actively
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
kill you because that that's kind of the love-hate relationship that
Right.
gearheads have with those vehicles.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
something that they've lost in the modern era since Audi
Definitely.
has refined them.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, so the Vipers, the original Vipers,
Mhm.
did not have traction control.
No.
Did not have ABS.
No.
Did not have stability control.
No.
It was
They didn't even have airbags.
it was 8.4 massive
Or air
liters
conditioning.
of 10 cylinders, 600 horsepower,
Mhm.
6-speed manual transmission, and all that power went to two wheels, and
Yep.
it was the back ones, and you just got in and held on.
Yep. And there's something fun about that when it's not your daily
When it's
driver
not the
that
daily.
you have to live with day
Right.
in and day out. Yes, yes. And that's kind of taken me on a journey of kind of re-examining my past loves of Camaros,
Right.
because I ultimately fell in love with, and I alluded to it even earlier tonight, the fourth generation Camaros, which,
Right.
for those of you unfamiliar, ran from 1993 to 2002. And really, my favorites of the bunch were the 98 to 2002, because that's when they changed the headlights. The interior got, I'm going to do this with air quotes here, an upgrade. Because looking back at it now, yeah, the interior was terrible.
It went from the dual rectangle headlights to the more bubbly,
right,
rounded edges and whatnot.
more flowing lines,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was the catfish Camaro, as most people call
yes,
it.
okay.
It looked like a catfish. And the interior kind of went from less of a jet fighter with, like, it had on the in the cockpit. For the driver, you had your driver information center with all your gauges, and then on either side of it, you had an air vent pointed towards the driver, and then I don't know what the passenger had. Like I said, I was not as into those as I really started getting into them in 98, which they changed the interior in 97 and changed the exterior in 98, but 98 to 02 were my favorite. Culminating in the 02 with the 35th anniversary, which is 10 years prior to the Camaro that I actually had. And looking at it now, I've found several used 02 anniversary editions for sale online that I would so love to have. And I think, and I alluded to this, we had my wife on.
We did.
To just kind of go behind the scenes with us just a little bit. And ran into a little bit of a problem. So this was episode 29, Mazdas and Minis. You can go listen to it. But she has an aversion to specifically that generation Camaro.
Yeah, that's
more
a nice
than
way
any
to
other.
say it.
And like I said, I will let her tell the story. You go back to episode 29, Mazdas and Minis. You listen to her tell the story. But I would say at this point in my life, I'm 30. Oh, gosh. I will be 34 this month.
Had to think about that
yes, one. I quit counting at 25.
Yeah.
I was counting up to 25 so I could have the Camaro. Now I don't care.
Yeah.
So at this point in my life, 34, as near as makes no difference, 34 years old, I think I would much rather have an 02 SS with an LS1, 6-speed manual, rear-wheel drive. They had a live axle, solid rear axle at the time, and a big gripe of those was axle hop going around corners. They definitely do not corner like the current generations do. They were a hatchback, so they were quote-unquote more practical. They were easier to see out of. There was definitely way more glass in those than the current. But
hundreds of pounds of glass in that car.
I don't know. So my dream car is a 69 Camaro Z28, but I just love the Camaro with the V8, a manual, and yes. Yeah. So I say it would probably be 69 Camaro Z28, 02 35th anniversary edition, just because it has a special place in my heart. Like
in yellow.
They didn't come in yellow.
I thought-
The anniversaries came in red. You're thinking of the Fire Chicken.
Oh, okay.
Firebird
All right.
came in yellow with black accents, and it
Yep,
wasn't really
yep,
an
yep.
anniversary edition because technically it came out after the Camaro did.
I
I'm
don't-
going full Camaro nerd on you now. But yes, it was red with the silver to checkered flag racing stripes,
Oh.
the black accent
Yeah.
underneath the hood scoop. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Classic
Yeah.
90s.
Two-tone interior. I loved.
Yeah.
I am a fan of two-tone interiors, and that one had a two-tone kind of black and pewter interior.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved it, and
Yeah.
I still to this day love it, and
Yeah.
would have it if I could.
Well, she didn't completely turn you down.
Right. So
It's just like
it never
way
needs to be
back
seen
in
by
the stable.
her.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, babe, I'm going for a drive. Okay.
I got to go drive to get my car. Then
Right.
I'm going to go for a
There
drive.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll
So-
be one that we keep at the studio when we have a studio.
Yes.
See?
Nice segue on
There you
that,
go.
because if you would like to support our channel, support our
Absolutely.
habits, support what we're doing, you can head over to GT Garage Talk /support. There you will find, I believe it's 4, 5, 6 different ways that you can support us. One of them being our Patreon account, where for $3 a month, you can just support what we are doing and to continue to see great content from us. For $5 a month, you get bloopers each week and a little bit extra content
Yep.
from Matt and I after we stop recording this episode that everyone gets to hear. And there are multiple different tiers after that you can see different perks along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Just a nice little plug for, if you want to help us out and help me get this Camaro
Definitely.
one day.
One day.
One day. I will have it.
So, to maybe segue a little more,
Yeah.
one of my dream vehicles,
Okay.
because I have multiple, because
Naturally.
gearhead.
Yeah.
One of my dream vehicles is to own, I guess I could say I've kind of owned 2 of my dream vehicles.
Okay.
Because the other one that I would have, well, I'll tell you what it is and what I would do to it to make it mine.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you what I had that compares to it. So my dream vehicle would be,
A dream vehicle. No.
one of my dream vehicles would
Keep
be
you honest here.
A late model, and I say late model because they went to fuel injection just a few years ago. A Honda Shadow Phantom
Okay.
in matte white with Vance and Hines short shots, blacked out Vance and Hines short shots. And it would
He went into that two-wheel world. And,
it would have to be 2-up with a sissy bar and probably an aftermarket seat because my wife likes to be comfortable if she goes for a ride on the back of a motorcycle. So, but
basically, it's a cruising bike.
it's
cruiser motorcycle?
it's a cruiser-esque
Yeah, okay.
commuter kind of
Okay.
vein. 750cc V-twin. Oh yeah,
I don't know. I'm just.
It's a Honda, so it's balanced, it's smooth. I had an 07 Shadow Spirit
Okay.
in Honda blue. It was
Okay.
beautiful. In 07 they were still carbureted, and I never had the money to do the Vance and Hines short shots, but I had heard one fire up with those pipes on it, and man, it sounded good. Like Harleys have a distinct sound, right?
Potato.
Yeah. Harley has built a brand around a sound.
Yep.
They have also built a building around sound where they take their new motorcycles and test for hours and days on end
Well, when that is how you build your brand,
to make sure that
you
it
have
sounds.
to maintain
Yeah,
the brand.
it's ridiculous, but
That's my business. My 2 cents.
I'm with you there.
Business sense with Cory.
So instead of the Vance and Hines short shots, this goofy guy,
He pointed to himself there.
yeah, me, this goofy guy, was talked into cutting the baffles out
No.
on my, on my bike.
How'd that
So,
work for you?
It wasn't crazy awful loud.
No. But it wasn't great.
It was not a clean, crisp, pop, resonant, growly kind of sound that I was after. It was a droning, like with your nose pitched closed, kind of a resonant sound. It wasn't great.
Right.
It gave it a little more noise, but it wasn't what I wanted. So, but yeah. So, and I loved the Honda Blue. I think there may be a picture up on the website. If not, we'll make sure there's a picture up on the website of that bike. But
I think you need to get me one.
I definitely do. There's some on Facebook too. So if you track me down on Facebook, there's some pictures of my bike there.
Which I have your Facebook page linked on gtgaragetalk.com / oh gosh. What is it? It's about Garage Talk. You go to About Garage Talk.
Oh, okay.
So gtgaragetalk.com / about. There
Cool.
you go.
Nice. See?
Find our personal social media pages.
Right there together, all laid in. See? Okay. So, yeah, that would be, I guess, a variant of one of my dream vehicles would be a Shadow Spirit. Or, I'm sorry, Shadow Phantom.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we pass the question on to you, our listeners, our Gearhead faithful. Should you own your dream car? And, I mean, we've kind of gone back and forth on it. I believe we're both of the opinion that, yes, just be smart about it.
Right.
But what do you, our Garage Talk faithful, think about it? We would truly love to hear back from you. We will put up an image on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for you to reply on, start a conversation thread on, to give your answers to this question.
4 weeks from tomorrow is our car show. Unlikely Heroes.
Go sign up.
Sign up.
Why haven't you signed up yet? Don't tell me it's not because you don't have an awesome car.
Right.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. October 24th from 10 to 2. Is that what we're doing? 10 to 2. At Hilltop Church of the Nazarene. We're having a car show right here then. Be there or be square.
Absolutely. gtgaragetalk.com / car show. Check us out. Until next time. Bye.